Ever wondered why almost everyone stands on one corner of the table when they serve? Ever wondered why a few people like to deviate from that? Let me tell you why. So hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm here in Antwerp where I always am in the Kilipangal hall of my sponsor, and today we're going to look into quite a special topic. Why do some people when they're serving stand in the middle of the table or at the other side of the table instead of the good old reliable backhand corner? It is quite a special topic, like I said, it has its reasons, and in this video I'm going to explain the reasons why people do that and also how you can implement it in your game, but also how you as a server but also as a receiver can make the most out of those situations. Quite an important side note though, because in this video I'm only going to explain the tactics and the reasons of the short serves in those contexts. I'm not going to really look into half-long serves or long serves and the reasons why people do those from those particular places of the table. I'm just going to look at the short serves. Now, why do some people serve from a different part of the table? And why don't certain people do that? Two very logical explanations, I think, if you listen to the reasoning, because let's start with why do people serve from a different spot on the table? They want people to step in and open the game and let the opponent take the initiative, on which they can take a counter spin or take the counter initiative. And in the next key point I will explain in what exact situations that is applicable and in what exact situations people want to do that. But also you want to avoid certain people to open the game if you're feeling uncomfortable with it. And so sometimes it comes in handy to start serving from the middle or from the forehand, because you can serve just that little bit sharper or you can make it just a little bit more awkward for the other guy. Now, why do some people avoid serving from a different part from the table? A general principle of table tennis is that you should cover up your backhand first. It is much easier to cover the forehand if you're a bit too late than it is standing in the forehand and trying to cover up the backhand. That is quite hard to do because you want to stand behind that ball. And so, if you're standing here and you start your rally here at the backhand side of the table, there's basically only one way for you to go. You only have to think about covering up the forehand, and you only have to go and have to travel towards the forehand. That backhand side normally should be covered once you serve and you're getting ready for your neutral position. Now, if you serve from the other side of the table, then first of all you need to travel back to your backhand side, but that's not the end, because then sometimes you get a ball in your backhand, in which case good for you, you were traveling toward that. But it can also happen that after your serve and that you move sideways to the backhand, that you again have to move to the other side, which for some people is not so easy to do, is quite uncomfortable. So that's why they avoid it. Because like I said one more time, if you start your serve from the backhand corner, there's only one way for you to go. It's either standing still or moving up to the forehand. If you start to serve from here, you start and you go back one way, and then even then there's still both ways to go. Now I will give you some exact examples into why people try to serve from this corner and why it is beneficial for them or when it is not beneficial for them. And let's just start rotation by rotation. I'm already going to say it as a disclaimer, it is not easy, it's not an easy topic whatsoever. So pay attention. I'm going to explain it in layman's terms. A sidespin serve and a straight serve, a downspin serve or serve without spin. Why do some people do it? And when is it applicable? Well, usually if you're playing somebody who is playing with the same hand as you, so lefties against lefties, right against righties, it's beneficial for them and they use it to serve a bit more to the forehand side. And why? Because from here you can serve just that tiny bit sharper than you would serving from the backhand corner. Because in the backhand corner, if you serve with sidespin, that ball is going to turn towards the opponent. And let's say you're playing a guy who likes to come in with a banana flick, with a backhand flick, then that ball is just not coming as sharp. So if you were to serve from the forehand corner, that ball is really going outwards. It's going outwards, and then you have to just take that extra step, which makes it just a tiny bit more uncomfortable for your opponent. And that's why some people would do that. If you're playing left against right, you don't usually see it occur all that often. And why not? Because yes, you can serve maybe a tiny bit sharper relative to a serve from the backhand when it comes to serving short in the forehand. The problem is, if you look at the trajectory of the ball, the serve from the backhand corner, that serve is coming just a little bit more in the middle. Yes, like I said, not as far as you would with a serve from the forehand or from the middle. But here's the thing, that ball turns outwards a lot, by a lot. So that makes it not easy to receive on, to receive aggressively on at least. And so, yes, you can serve a bit sharper if you play that serve down the line, so to say. The problem is, like I said again, it's not turning outwards so much, and so that makes it, I think, in my opinion, just a little bit easier to receive aggressively on. Plus, even if they take a forehand or they take a backhand push, a passive receive, you still have that looming risk of getting an aggressive long push in your backhand or a really sharp push in your backhand or in your middle. If you come from this forehand side here, and you need to cover up, a long push there can really be done quite sharp. A long push in the middle can really be done quite aggressively, and that is quite a big risk, so that's why you don't see it occur so often. However, sometimes there are, of course, some examples. A guy I know, Maxim Grebnev, a very good Russian player who's not playing international as of now, he is one of the few examples I know that serves a sidespin serve right to left to the short forehand of the other guy. And then what does he do? He moves up and he's ready to take a step around. He's ready to take his forehand in the backhand corner on which he can attack. That, of course, is quite tricky for him, but it is a good strategy, so to say, because it is a tempting decision to make that if you get that short serve into your short forehand and the guy is standing there, that you move him to the long backhand, get that ball really sharp in the corner. But if he's already anticipating that, wanting to step around, yeah, I mean, he's one step ahead. But yeah, you don't see it occur so often. Now we look at the serves with reverse side spin. So I mean a hook serve, a reverse pendulum serve, a backhand serve, a tomahawk serve, whatever you can think of. Those serves, maybe you might have guessed it, it's quite the opposite. They aren't so much used when people of the same playing hand play against each other. And I think somewhat of the same reasoning. If you start from here, from the short forehand side or from the middle, you can't serve as sharp and keep the ball over the table as you would when you serve from the backhand corner. From the backhand corner, you can really get that ball quite nice and parallel, but here you have to take into account that the ball turns a bit more away, and if you really try to serve as sharp as you normally would, then that ball's coming half long. So that's a risk, and that's why people usually don't do it so much. And on top of that, because it's not coming as sharp, if your opponent wants to come in with a backhand flick, then he can play that ball quite aggressively. One, because of the side spin that is already turning like this, and that just generates that extra speed. So if I get the ball turning from the other way around with a regular side spin serve, then you need to generate the speed yourself. But with a reverse side spin, if you play let's say an equal-handed player, then that speed is already, it's very easy to translate that into the next shot. That's what I try to say. On top of that, because you're standing here, your backhand is fully exposed, and if they get a good backhand flick in or a good forehand flick in, whatever, then it is hard to cover that ball, to get that ball. So that's why I don't see it so much when lefties are playing lefties or righties are playing righties. Now, when lefties are playing righties, that's where you see it occur a bit more, but contrary to what you might think, not so much to the short forehand. That serve, or that serve, or that serve, or that serve is not really done down the line so much. And why not? A little bit the same reasoning as I just explained. Because the side spin in the ball makes it that it is quite easy to translate the side spin into speed onto the receive, So if I push long, for example, that side spin is very easy to just use, absorb, and turn into speed into my long receive. And so that is quite tricky, because if I get a serve here, I can really push very aggressively into that deep backhand of my opponent, of the server, or into the middle of the server. And because they're traveling this way, they're moving up this way, all of a sudden it's quite tricky to cover that ball or to turn in time and play a proper first ball in your middle. So, like I said, contrary to what you might think, here people will more serve into the short backhand as a way of luring people out of their cage or out of their cave, I think, and trying to make them flick that ball, trying to make them open the rally. But why? Well, multiple reasons. First of all, if you're standing here in the middle of the table and you serve that serve diagonally to a right-handed player, in my case, because I'm a left-hander. I'm waiting here in the middle of the table. Because of the side spin, first of all, the side spin in the ball cannot be so easily translated into speed in the receive. So you got that covered. That is one thing. The ball will come back quite a bit slower than otherwise. On top of that, to play that ball really nice and sharp down the line, one, is quite hard, and two, can't really be done with a lot of speed. So even if you're standing here in the middle of the table after your serve, you can still make it in time to get to that ball. And so what you think might happen is that people play that backhand flick, they play it here towards your forehand side. So I serve here and they play that flick diagonal towards the 2/3 forehand part. That is quite easy to cover, especially if you're already standing here. And somebody who uses that incredibly to his advantage is Darko Jorgic. I made a video on it. Let me just demonstrate it as a right-hander. So he serves to the backhand part of the left-hander, waiting here in the middle of the table. And if the ball comes in a deep forehand, it's in his racket. If the ball comes in his middle, he can still take it with his backhand. That's not an issue for him. And because he uses so much side spin on his serve, it really is hard to get that ball nice down the line, nice and sharp down the line. So that's why he doesn't really worry even about trying to cover that ball. It's quite useful to, contrary to what you might think, one more time, to serve into the backhand and lure your opponent into opening the rally into playing a flick. As long as you have a good counterspin, of course. So that was the video. Hope you got something from it and hope you were able to keep up, because I think it is one of my videos with the most difficult subject matter, with the most complex subject matter. So maybe rewatch it. It's good for my income anyway. But I think it is quite useful just to think about this, and also as a receiver how you can anticipate it, of course. So the things that I explained to you right here that are useful for a server, of course you can sort of try to counter it and use it to your advantage as a receiver. Try to do the opposite. If somebody doesn't serve in the patterns that I just explained, well, try to expose them because of those reasons. I think that's why for both sides, both the server and the receiver, this video might be of some use to you. So one more time, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.